Hello everyone and welcome. We are EBS, your experienced technology partner. We specialize in the deployment of Sage Business Management and Microsoft solutions, managed services, cybersecurity solutions, and secure on-premises and cloud-based infrastructure. The business is over 45 years old. My name is Darren Tolley and I am one of the account managers here at EBS. Today we are joined by Draycir, who we've partnered with for many years. Draycir are a Sage tech partner and provide a wide range of innovative solutions for Sage 200. And many of you will already be utilizing Spindle document management. We are recording today's presentation and we'll make this available to you in the next few days. There are lots of recordings on our YouTube channel. Remember to hit subscribe to be notified when we load new videos. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to Ross Barker, who will give us an overview of Draycir's Credit Hound Professional solution, which works with Sage 200 to provide your teams with what they need to more efficiently chase your debtors. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat, or there will be an opportunity at the end of the session. Without further ado, I'll pass you over to Ross. Morning, Ross.
Morning, Darren. Thank you for the very kind introduction there. And thank you for your time all this morning for joining the session. As Darren mentioned, I'm one of the partner managers for Draycir. I look after the EBS account, and we'll be having a look at one of our pieces of software this morning, most notably Credit Hound. And as Darren mentioned, it's a piece of software ultimately that is designed to support you within that credit control function, chasing those debtors, but with quite a bit of sophistication behind that, from chase cycles to automation to reporting, dispute management, task and diary management, which we'll come to in a few moments, obviously. Before we do, a brief introduction from me this morning. As Darren mentioned, we are a long-standing partner of EBS. We're actually a business that is now 20 plus years old, award-winning software vendor, most notably for Sage. We have many customers globally. We actually operate in kind of 50 plus countries around the world now, and many thousands of organizations using our solutions, be it Credit Hound or a number of our other solutions, which Darren can explore with you in further conversation should you need. We are, for the most part, experts within that credit control based software and document management solutions. And all of our solutions are designed to streamline your business and improve some of those efficiencies along the way. Darren did mention that Credit Hound is compatible with Sage 200, but across all of the Sage suite of products that you see there as well. The reason for Credit Hound is very simply when you see statistics like these, some shocking statistics in many ways, as I'm sure you'll all agree. But it's really designed to strip away that administrative burden that sits behind credit control, improve those efficiencies so that you don't fall into one of these statistics that you see in front of you now. In terms of challenges within your business and many customers that myself and Darren speak to, the impacts of that previous screen are that it will affect your cash flow negatively. You will be getting paid slowly or slower or not at all. That has a knock-on effect to your debt and credit rating. And obviously there's those many manual processes that sit behind all of those elements. Credit Hound, on the flip side, is designed to reduce that outstanding debt, improve that cash flow. More importantly, in many cases, save you the time within that business to be able to then prioritize other tasks and speak to those customers to understand, to investigate why that payment was late, not necessarily just putting a plaster on it, but getting to the root cause of why that payment was late. The beauty of Credit Hound is that it does provide that quick return on investment, and we actually have return on investment calculators available to you, which we can share obviously after the session as well. Here's just an example of one of our customers and the return on investment that they've had. But let's have a look at Credit Hound. I'm not one for death by PowerPoint, which I'm hoping is music to your ears this morning. The screen that you see in front of you now is very simply the dashboard for Credit Hound Professional. And all of the widgets, as we'll refer to them this morning on that dashboard, are designed to be a snapshot into that information that you need throughout the working day, throughout the working week. As I say, taking away all of that administrative burden that sits behind credit control, having all of that information in front of you so your finger is very much on the pulse. Hopefully all of these widgets will make sense, but I will whiz through them very, very quickly, just by way of brief introduction. Your outstanding debt is exactly that. Now, dependent on how you choose to configure Credit Hound, you may wish to use the groups and categories, maybe between credit controllers or groups of credit controllers, i.e. Darren manages all of our customers in category A, I manage all of our customers in category B. You can configure Credit Hound so that actually Darren sees the outstanding debt for the customers that he looks after. I would see the outstanding debt for the customers that I look after. So just to give you an idea of the kind of the configuration within Credit Hound. Mini age debt is exactly that. I can access the mini age debt list from the ribbon at the top, but again, this is that snapshot into those collection buckets of periods that I have. We can configure those collection buckets and periods again. So if you don't operate to 30, 60, 90, 120 days, then of course we can configure the system accordingly. Where is my money is that outstanding debt broken down into these four categories: overdue, not due, disputed, non-allocated. And you'll see very much that theme throughout Credit Hound, again with the who has my money widget next to that. If I was just to click into that overdue category, you will then see a full list of all of your customers that actually make up that particular category. And a little bit like that dashboard view that I mentioned a moment ago, dependent on how you've configured Credit Hound, or dependent on what information you wish to see, again, this can very much be personalized within this view amongst other views: age, debt, accounts list, and so on. So much so that it might be you just simply prefer to have your overdue column over here, i.e. that bit closer to your customer, or you might actually prefer to pull through some other fields of information from Sage 200, and that might be something as simple as the region or the salesperson. So if you're a credit controller and you often reference the sales account manager because the familiarity is there with the customer, it might be that that's really useful information to you. And of course, you can then filter or search by the individual salesperson, in this case Ian, or you can click, sort and filter on any of the columns of information that you see in front of you. If you were searching for a particular customer, FE would do it. You're not searching or typing in the entire name to pull through Festival Homes, and you can click on those columns to sort the information that you may need. If I was to sort on the overdue column here, I can see that these top three customers have just broken that £40,000 overdue limit. Now, if I was to select these three customers, you'll notice that it's updated the selected totals at the bottom. So if you are doing any calculations or account analysis within Credit Hound, you're not having to get the calculator out. That's updated those totals for you. But actually, you could also export that to Excel if you've got any specific kind of formulas and calculations you've applied to that. It might also be the case that these three customers have broken that limit, so you'd also like to then change the group or category. And again, I just revert back to that point I mentioned a moment ago. Dependent on how you've configured the system will depend on what this looks like. But it might be that you then wish to put those customers in a problem payers category, or an escalation category, or a legal category, for example, and then Credit Hound can communicate to them in a different way. Who has my money I often refer to like a rogues gallery. These are your top 8 accounts in terms of your outstanding debt, and I can just hover over the festival account and you can see the breakdown again with those same categories that we went through a moment ago. Promise cash. This is a really useful widget because as you're having those conversations with your customers, understanding, investigating why that payment was late, but ultimately trying to generate that promise to pay date. When can we expect that in? Well, as that's logged in Credit Hound, you will see that information updated within this widget. You can, of course, report on this as well as everything else in Credit Hound, it's important to say. But again, this is just that quick snapshot. We touched on what Credit Hound is there to do. It's there to improve that cash flow within your business, but it's also there to give you the visibility of what that improved cash flow looks like. And again, you can see that very simply from your dashboard. Credit Hound also has a full task and diary management suite to it, as well as a dispute tracking element to it as well. And again, I can access that information from the ribbon at the top with my calendar, my to-do list, but I've got a full list of my to-dos there. I've also got a full list of my disputes. If you do have many disputes, or frequent or infrequent, doesn't matter. You can be logging those within Credit Hound, and those disputes can be sent off to the relevant area of the business for your colleague to investigate that dispute out a little bit further. And who has paid me in the last 7 days? This is more of a notification piece than anything else. Is particularly useful with businesses that do have a slightly larger credit control team, let's say, where those credit controllers might not have access to Sage 200 or the finance system. I may well have been speaking to Better Kitchens for the last 2 or 3 days. I've been expecting payment, haven't yet seen it come through. But if I log into Credit Hound this morning, I can see that Better Kitchens have paid. So again, just more of a notification piece than anything else. The dashboard can be configured to the individual user's preference. Okay, so if I simply didn't need the who has paid me in the last 7 days widget because I do have a Sage 200 license, I might not need to see who's paid me, i.e. I've seen the monies come into the business. It might just be that I want to extend those widgets accordingly. But again, that's really up to the individual user. So that was just a very, very brief intro to the dashboard. Were there any questions that have come through so far at all, Darren, or are we okay still to proceed?
Yeah, there's obviously there's a ream of information there. And as I understand it, there are different licensing options that give you different sort of configurations of Credit Hound Professional.
Yes, you're exactly right. So there are the 3 main license types. There is a full user, a business intelligence user, and a limited user. Both the full and business intelligence user would get full access to that dashboard view that you see here. The limited user wouldn't have a dashboard view. They would still have access to an accounts view though. Important to say, the full user and the business intelligence user can see everything that we'll go through this morning. The full user has no limitations in terms of the actions that you perform. Anything else at this stage at all, Darren? Or are we okay to have a look at Credit Hound earning its money?
No, there's nothing else at
Is that
the
okay?
moment.
Perfect.
Yeah, perfect.
So, as I mentioned, Credit Hound is designed to strip away that administrative burden. It does that by automating your credit control process through what we call the rules and actions. Now, many customers are still working from that age debt report, run off daily, filtered with the greatest value to the top, and then effectively the credit controllers will start, whether it's an old-fashioned line ruler and a line through that first transaction, or whether it's marked on an Excel spreadsheet or some kind of report, but effectively it's the same. It's working their way down that list. Problem with that, of course, is that it's out of date the minute that the report is generated. And of course, what happens to all of those other accounts on pages 1, 2, 3, 4 of that report? There's just simply not enough time in the day. What we want Credit Hound to do is run through your preferred chase cycle, as we'll refer to it. And your chase cycle can have as many stages as you need or want. Mine's quite simple this morning. I've just got the 5 stages to my rule, to my chase cycle. As I say, you could have as many as you need. The first stage to my chase cycle, I've titled preemptive letter. Now, it's important that when I say letter or refer to anything as a letter, it can be printed and sent out in the post, of course. But I'll show you the example this morning, which is 99 times out of 100 the case within the customers we speak to. It will go as an attachment to an email. Now, my preemptive letter, I'll just open up that rule very quickly. It's configured with these rule criteria in mind, okay? And then we've simply got an action. So this is effectively the filter and this is what we want Credit Hound to do. A very, very brief summary is that Credit Hound will write a preemptive reminder letter to accounts with an undisputed outstanding invoice that's due in the next 5 days, or was due yesterday, and who have not been chased in the last 7 days. There are, of course, other criteria, but that's the bulk of what we need to look at this morning. Now, very simply, I select the rule and I click run. Credit Hound has now beat me to it. All of that information is pulled through from Sage 200 into Credit Hound, and all of these customers here have invoices that fit within that criteria. I can now very simply just click OK and Credit Hound communicate to them. You still have the ability, however, just to remove some customers from that chase stage if you want to, just simply by unticking them, okay? And you could untick as many as you need, okay? Now, if I click OK, Credit Hound is now going to preview me what it's about to send out. Okay, now remember, this is a preemptive chase letter, so many customers we speak to would simply say, you know, we don't have the time to do that at present. We don't have enough time to chase those customers that are 30 days overdue, 40 days overdue, 50 days overdue. Never mind send them a nice friendly reminder. But of course, Credit Hound is doing that. So it's not an additional job for you to do other than simply to click OK. So this is a preview of what Credit Hound is about to send out. And all we're ever doing is clicking print. That's very simply the delivery mechanism of that first chase stage. Now, we are not necessarily printing the document, as I say. We can print it, but we will more than often than not be sending that out by email and as an attachment to an email. Now, just while that's sending, I'll run off this rule again. And you might be thinking, well, why on earth are you doing that? You've just run off that rule. But you'll now see that it's pulled through 4 customers. And if you remember a moment ago, I deselected these 4 accounts when I originally run off that rule. The reason being is that one of the criteria was who have not been chased in the last 7 days. And of course, we haven't chased them in the last 7 days because I removed them from the chase a few moments ago. And I mentioned that just to give you the confidence that Credit Hound isn't bombarding your customers with email after email after email. It works to a very strict set of logic and commands and will just very simply filter those customers accordingly. Now, I could just go into the next rule, click run, chase, the next rule, run, click chase, and so on. I very simply have a preemptive reminder letter. I chase after 15 days, after 22, after 30, and then I'll eventually get to my telephone chase list. As I say, yours could be as detailed as it needs to be. Now, if I just click into my email to show you, Credit Hound, within 2 clicks of the button, has communicated to 71 of your customers. Now, I'm sure you're in agreement that it would take your credit control team much longer than that, i.e. clicking print and OK, to communicate to all 71 of those customers with a very specific message. All 71 of these customers have invoices that are due in the next 7 days. This is an example of what that email can look like. Of course, it's fully branded as your own with your own stationery set, logos and livery signatures. We can include whatever information you want in the body of the email, like so. And again, this is just that friendly reminder. We can include the preemptive chase letter, okay? And we could also include a copy of the invoice, should that be something that you need to send as well. So in this case, we're very much kind of beating the customer to the punch almost. We're effectively saying, dear Mike Watson, there are invoices that are due in the next 7 days, and hopefully we don't have to have an excuse in 7 days' time of we never received that invoice, because we've actually attached a copy just here, as you can see there. So very, very straightforward process. Again, it's just simply a case of running off the rule, clicking OK, and then you'll have all of those emails communicated accordingly. Now, hopefully that all makes sense. Any questions that have come through on that at the moment at all, Darren, or is that again, is that all making sense so far to everybody, hopefully?
It looks like it's all making sense as we've got no questions.
Perfect. Okay. So yeah, just before we move forward, just a very simple example of the attachment that we can send. Again, this is a more formal attachment, so it will reference you know, the customer detail here. your banking information if necessary, the invoices that are due. We can include our pay now buttons if you do include or accept payments by debit or credit card. We can include our pay now buttons and payment links. A conversation perhaps for another day. Obviously explore that with Darren accordingly. But again, it's just about greasing the wheels of that process and trying to get your and encourage your customers to make payment that bit faster. Now, again, I'm not going to go through all of my rules this morning, but I will just draw your attention to the top one, because this one differs slightly to the others in the sense that this is my most severe stage of my chase cycle. Built again of these criteria, we've got some actions here. Now, I might want additional actions in here because this particular rule will put accounts in my to-do list to call today if the account has an undisputed outstanding invoice that's 50 days overdue. Well, you might be thinking, well, actually, if it's 50 days overdue or 60 or 70, whatever time frame you've configured, I might also want to put that account on stop. And Credit Hound will do that as well. It will put that account on stop in Sage 200, and it will flag it as on stop in Credit Hound for you as well, so it's clearly visible to your credit control team. Select the rule in question, click run. It's pulled all through these transactions that fit within that criteria, and I click OK. The rule has been completed successfully. No preview email this time because that's not what we've asked Credit Hound to do. We've asked Credit Hound to populate my to-do list with a call for today. So it's that task and diary management element to Credit Hound. No longer have your credit control teams or your credit control manager got to go into that report in the morning, filter through all of your customers, figure out who those priority calls are, allocate those to the team members, or the team members do that themselves through their own reporting, and then decide who they're calling. Very simply, these are my to-do items for today or for this week. I've got some dispute calls in there, resolution calls, review calls. I've got some callbacks, but I've also got these automated calls here that Credit Hound has generated for me. They are my priority calls for today. Again, I can filter between these ones. So if I just really want to focus on my automated calls, my priority calls for today, again, I've got all of those calls there. Okay, I don't need to worry about that age debt report, what's on page 2 and page 3. They're not a priority for me today. Credit Hound has determined that these customers fit within that criteria, and these are the calls for me to make as a priority for today. If you prefer to work from a calendar view, as I do, gives me a bird's eye view of my working week. Again, I could see all of my other calls in there, along with the priority calls that Credit Hound has generated for me. And if I simply know that my contact at Festival Homes doesn't work on a Wednesday, I could actually just drag that forward to a Thursday, for example, or a Friday, or whichever date I know my contact is back in. If you are clicking into that to-do item, you'll see all of the information, contact information here. You'll see the description of why it's there, in this case part of my telephone chase list. And you can set the individual priorities, as you're speaking to the customer. If you weren't in, for example, it could be Darren, please call on Friday, for example. I might not be in the office on Friday. I could allocate that to my colleague and just push that one forward to Friday. As individuals, if you're working within that team environment, or it might be a credit control manager that actually manages the diaries of the team, I could then see a copy of my colleague's diary with the to-do item that I've asked them to fulfill on my behalf whilst I'm not in the business. So you can very much kind of work as a team and manage your diaries, share that workload accordingly if needed. And that is kind of the basis of what Credit Hound is there to do, is to take your chase cycle, whatever that looks like. You configure the stages that you want Credit Hound to communicate to your customers, be it 5 days before, be it 5 days after, 22 days after, 30 days after due date, whether that's to put task and diary entries with call prompts into your individual credit controllers' diaries. Again, all of that process done with 2 clicks of the mouse. Run, OK, and everything is processed for you. Now, there will be occasions, of course, where, again, once all of that admin is taken out of the loop, it's freed up that time for me to speak to my customers. Now, whether I'm doing that from an automated chase item like this, again, we've got a priority call for festival homes, for example. Now, again, I might want to chase that account. So let's just do that, and we'll show what generating a promise to pay looks like very briefly. So once I'm in the customer account, it's going to break that customer account down into three kind of main areas. We've got the transaction history at the top, a little bit of housekeeping. Those lines in red are overdue. Those in blue are disputed. Those in black are a credit note, and those in green are not yet due. As you can see, overdue days, currently that one's not due for 16 days and this one not for 7 days. That middle box is your audit history. Not only your credit control team's touch points with that particular transaction, but also Credit Hound. So you can see here quite clearly that the first automated chase letter was sent on this date. The second chase letter was sent on this date. We then had a telephone call, and the customer in this case promised to make payment, and that they are sending a check in the post. So again, if you do ever need to query anything, if anything was to ever get to that unfortunate stage of entering maybe a legal process, you can fully document, date and timestamp every interaction that you've had with that transaction. The bottom box is all of your account information. And again, I can toggle between the category that customer sits in. If I speak into the customer, it becomes clear that they need to be moved into a different category dependent on how you've set that up. You can do that from here. I've got full information regards the address detail, the contact information, the extension numbers, the email addresses, etc., etc. I've got visibility of the age debt summary for this particular customer. I've also got turnover analysis, if that would be useful information to you when speaking to the customer. I've got reference to the analysis codes that relate to this particular customer account, any ongoing disputes, and I could also add transactional level notes in there as well. Okay, but let's assume that we want to speak to the customer about this particular transaction. So it's 31 days overdue now, £16,640. I want to speak to the customer to see why this payment is late and when can we expect payment. Now, I can't currently click into the chase item tab and add any notes. That's simply because I've not clicked start chase in the bottom right hand corner. Once I do that, it will prompt me if I've got other to-do items, so I can kind of kill two birds with one stone. I'll just keep it simple for this morning and say that we are just going to focus on this one. Now, you might get a common reason for non-payment or for late payment. There are a number of reasons here, as you can see. We can add more reasons, obviously, if you do get any common ones come through. I'll just say that Maureen apologizes and will make payment next week. Okay, you can select the reason here, and that will become clear when we run off the reports in a moment, and that's to give you that extra level of detail so you can run off some analysis if there are any common themes or trends appearing as to why your customers maybe aren't paying. There's a number of reasons here, as you can see. Again, I'll just keep this one quite simple and say promise to pay next week. Now, if you do take part payment, we can take promises for part payment, i.e. Maureen might be promising 6,000 to me next week, but then 30 days later, it might be the remaining balance of 10,000, obviously, so long as you've agreed that. So we can create almost payment plans or part payment promises if you want to. Again, I'll keep it simple for the demonstration this morning, and we'll just say that this one is due next week on the 7th of May. We can create a reminder as well if you want to. So if you want to manage this one quite closely, we can create that reminder. I will in this example, and simply click assign to selected. That is how easy it gets for you to log a promise to pay. So very, very straightforward. And that promise is now logged throughout Credit Hound. Whilst you've got Maureen on the phone, you might actually want to challenge her on some of these other invoices that are overdue, because there's quite a few here, as you can see. But let's just take this one for an example. With this one, though, let's just let's say that Maureen doesn't want to pay this one. She'd like to dispute this one. So very simply, we can click add dispute. Again, like with the reasons for non or late payment, we can include whichever common dispute reasons you might get or that are specific to your business. I'll just keep it straightforward and go with kind of goods faulty, a nice easy one for us to understand. We'll go with Maureen not willing to pay as goods were, we'll say, smashed on arrival, for example. Now, they're my notes that the customer's given me for non-payment, but I'm going to allocate this dispute to somebody within the business to investigate that further. If it was something like this, I might well be allocating or assigning that to, let's say, Paul Carr, our operations manager. Paul Carr doesn't need to be a Credit Hound license holder. So back to that point that somebody raised a question for earlier. You could almost, with that point in mind, have a company directory here if you wanted to. So, wherever you need to sort of forward those disputes onto. Again, we'll keep it simple. We'll say this one's for Paul, and I'll just say, Paul, please investigate and resolve. We'll say ASAP. Now, I'd like to review this with Paul. I'll review this next week on Tuesday, and I'd like it resolved ideally next Thursday, because if we have resolved it, then I can speak to Maureen about payment before the end of the week and hopefully get this one promised within my kind of set targets. I can copy anybody else in the business if I want to as well, but again, I'll just keep it simple and we'll click save and close. That's how easy it is for you to now log a dispute and obviously get that in this system for Paul to generate. If you've spoken to the customer everything you need to, we can simply click stop chase. Are you sure you want to include, do you want to include rather, or exclude those transactions from the automated chase cycle? Really up to you. I'll exclude. I've spoken to the customer about that. Do you want to follow up with that promise to pay? Again, we can have templates here. So if you don't need to follow up, you don't have to, not a problem at all. If you thought that was overkill, you've spoken to the customer enough. But if you want to follow up with the customer, just to say we've spoken this afternoon, you did make us a promise to pay, and here's the details of our conversation, you can do. Likewise, the dispute. Do you want to follow up to let the customer know that you've taken it seriously, you've logged that, you've provided the dispute reference number? You might think that's overkill. Again, you might want to have a paper trail of that. And likewise internally, rather than you pick up the phone to Paul Carr, your operations manager, let Credit Hound do that work for you. So we'll send that dispute via Credit Hound. Now again, Credit Hound will now just pop open what it's about to send for me. So the first one we'll see will be that dispute notification. Again, all you're ever doing is clicking print. That's that delivery mechanism that we mentioned a few minutes ago. So that dispute notification is now going to go off to the customer. The customer will now receive that, effectively confirming that we have logged that dispute and it's in the process. Here's the dispute report, again, to save you picking up the phone to your colleague or hunting him down in this case and providing all of that information. Let Credit Hound do that for you and keep that detailed log of it. Again, all you're ever doing is clicking print, just that one button, and let's get that process instigated internally. And then we've also got that follow-up to the promise to pay, again, just to keep a paper trail of the conversation that we've had. Again, just that one click, and that's now being communicated to Maureen as well. I'll just draw your attention very, very quickly to the promise cash widget here, most notably the figures within that. So 10,000 for this week and 7,300 for next week. I'll just refresh my screen very quickly. You'll see now that next week it's no longer 7,000 plus pounds, it's 23,955. Why? Because of course we've logged that Maureen has promised to make a payment of 16,000 plus pounds next week. So if you are operating to any kind of cash collection targets, or you're forecasting, what payments we are expecting in still this week, but also next week, again, you've got that immediately at your fingertips from the dashboard, but again, you can report on that in more detail. Let's just have a look at what those further communications look like. There's the dispute notification, where we let, in this case, Maureen know that we logged that dispute. Here's the reference number, and I've assigned that to my colleague Paul Carr. Again, you include whatever information you want in there, by the way. This is just an example. We've also got that dispute report. And again, so this is that communication internally. Let Credit Hound not only communicate outside of your business, but also internally. So here's everything that we've logged. It's not you as a credit control team's responsibility to investigate everything. Actually, with something like a goods faulty dispute, it might be something for an ops manager. Recorded on this date and time, on me. Recorded on this date and time, the reason, the review date, the resolution date, the details that I took on the call, and my internal notes. Again, much easier for Credit Hound to communicate that than you. And then we've just got that follow-up of the promise to pay. Again, just to detail the fact that we spoke this morning or this afternoon, and I refer to our conversation on the 30th. And you made a promise to pay this amount on this date, for example. And again, that's all now logged in the system on that audit that we also discussed a few minutes ago. One final thing I'll show you very, very quickly would just be a very quick example of a report. You have a full reporting suite within Credit Hound, as you can see here. I won't go through all of these, of course, but I will just show you one of them. If I show you the dispute analysis report very, very quickly, again, I won't go through all of these filters. I'll keep it very generic for this session. But again, just to show you here that because you've logged that within Credit Hound and we were logging those reasons, this then gives you that ability to see if there are any common themes or trends, really analyze what disputes you're getting as a business and actually what value or frequency you're getting those disputes in. Because in this case, you can see we've currently got £68,000 in dispute for goods faulty. So if you do see a particular spike in either the amount or the frequency, you can you try and identify that problem at the root cause. Rather than putting a plaster on something, let's get under the skin and see if we can eradicate what might be an ongoing dispute reason or theme that we're getting. And that could be the case with all of the examples here. From your callback analysis, we're getting any common themes in there, right down to your kind of promised cash as well. So again, in terms of forecasting your cash flow, again, you've got all of those conversations detailed, the notes here. There's the information from the widget on the dashboard, but then let's get under the skin of that. And again, there's my promise to pay. Maureen apologises and will make payment next week, £16,640. So hopefully that's given you a good overview of kind of Credit Hound in action. Any other questions that have come through at all, Darren? Because I know that's quite a bit of information to take on, but any other questions that have come through so far?
Yeah, so yeah, very impressive as always. Basically, how quickly could this be deployed on site?
So obviously there are some caveats to anything that I mentioned now in terms of timescale, because I mentioned you can have a chase cycle that befits your business or your process. You can chase in very different ways. You could chase by category of customer. For example, let's say you had a gold tier of customer. You might not dream of chasing them in the same way as a bronze category. So you would have effectively another chase cycle as such. You might have different companies as well. So you can change between sister business A, B, and C. So effectively, you're trebling the kind of the setup time there. So there are some caveats to this, Darren. But as a general rule, I often quote kind of 3 days as a base installation, configuration, and training process. This isn't a project where we're reinventing the wheel, and it's kind of a 20-day implementation. 3 days would typically do it if it's a fairly straightforward process of this is our chase cycle. We are a one company entity, and we'd also like some training on that as well. Typically only your 3 days, but again, I'll just caveat that dependent on if there was some very kind of specific requirements in there.
No, that's perfect. I mean, that aligns with what we would propose for a customer that is interested in taking on the product.
And obviously, just to emphasise the point that we're both on the same. I know EBS, particularly are a much more of a consultative approach, and so obviously it would be that detailed scoping call and conversation where we can really configure the system to your absolute needs, as opposed to just giving you something off the shelf. It would be, let's have a conversation. We need it to do this, 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 and this, and of course the system is configured to accordingly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the things that take some of the time basically is sort of report layouts and document layouts, that sort of thing, as well as the chase, the setting up of the chases. So,
Exactly.
but one final thing actually, which we've run previous webinars on the Credit Hound Cloud product.
Yes.
I just thought I'd ask, for the webinar, basically the key differences between the two.
So there are some differences between the two. What I would say with Credit Hound Professional is that you have got a very robust product that has been around for 17/18 years, I think now, long before my time at Draycir. And it does give you the ability to chase your customers at a much more granular level. So I just went through a very brief example there of chasing 5 days before the invoice was due, and chasing 15 days and 22 and 30, and then having a telephone chase list. Credit Hound Cloud can do that by way of communicating by email and still communicating those task or diary entries. But Credit Hound Professional allows you to chase at that analysis code level by category of customer. If you've got them flagged against an analysis code in Sage 200, for example, it could be that actually when your customers are within 10% of their credit limit, Credit Hound Professional can put them on stop. That's not something that you can do within Credit Hound Cloud yet. I'll just kind of mention that. So there are some kind of fundamental differences, but the foundation of the product is the same. It's that chase cycle, it's communicating with your customers. But if you want that more detailed kind of hands-on approach, then Credit Hound Professional would be something that we'd need to look at, because it does give you that enhanced rules and actions. It is that enhanced dispute management, i.e. we can have those disputes sent off to various areas of the business and colleagues. You do have a chase screen within Credit Hound Cloud, it's important to say, and they're both very detailed. You do have the to-do list within both of those functions, okay? Reporting is one of the key differences. Reporting is not yet within Credit Hound Cloud, although that is coming. Your reporting suite is within Credit Hound Professional. So if that's a big thing for you, that's very much the way to go, Credit Hound Professional over Credit Hound Cloud. The faster payments, those pay now buttons that we touched on briefly, they are applicable to both Professional and Cloud. And, obviously we can go through that in more detail if there is a specific request. We can attach copy invoices with both as well. Again, subject to within Credit Hound Cloud, you having access to another piece of our software, Spindle, document management. And then we do still have the task and team management within both as well. So as you can see, there's a lot of crossover there, but there are some key differences, some fundamentals as well. Chasing at the granular level, but also that reporting suite within there as well. The other thing I would just mention as well, Darren, is that there is only one user type within Credit Hound Cloud. Within Credit Hound Professional, I think we had a question on this a little bit earlier on in the session. Are there license types? Within Credit Hound Professional, you do have the ability to have the different licenses. And these are the 3 license types: full, BI, and limited. Business intelligence user, this one here. With full, you can do everything that we've done this morning. With the BI user, it's more, I guess, more of a management view. They can see everything that we've done this morning. They can add notes. They just wouldn't be able to run off those rules, for example, that we did this morning as well, create those promises to pay. So these are your credit controllers, very much so. These might be your management view, senior management team, director view that wants to see everything, that might want to add a note occasionally and run off those reports. Limited user would, I guess, almost be an extension to your existing CRM if you have one, where your accounts teams, your sales teams maybe can see a list of all of their accounts, but see all of those detailed credit control notes against those accounts as well, so they know whether to kind of push that for another sale, or obviously look to to retrieve payment on some of those accounts or assist in that process as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much. One final thing actually on Credit Hound Cloud is that it will run with Sage 200 standard.
Correct. Yep. So with Credit Hound Professional, as we saw from an earlier slide at the beginning of the session, is applicable across the Sage suite of products pretty much, and Credit Hound Cloud is the same. So yeah.
Thank you very much for doing that. That's great as ever, and thanks everyone for watching. Just a reminder that we have our Thrive 25 event at Moore Hall Hotel on the 18th of June, which Ross will be up to. If you go to our website, then you can register on there for that. So that's it from us today. Look forward to seeing you again soon.